So I will pick up here by saying that as part of the oral tradition and the oral history of our people, not only here in the diaspora, but also on the mainland of Africa. And I see that as we join together and that we're beginning to understand each other, that the oral history concerning um, the Menelik bloodline, which it is said that Menelik is a descendant of Solomon through the Queen of Sheba, that we need to shed some light on this to have a proper understanding. I also mentioned that it is a fact, it is true, it is written in the scriptures, that Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, did visit Solomon. It is a fact. And so now we want to understand this in the perspective of the Bible, in the perspective of the scriptures, because we did document it. So in the oral history of our brethren in Africa, not only Africa, but also in the diaspora, and I'm from Jamaica, and we have the Rastafarian movement, and they are heavy on this. In fact, this oral tradition is the background or backbone of Rastafarianism, because Rastafari is Selassie. Haile Selassie's birth name is Tafari Makinon. And so Ras is his elevated title, Tafari is his first given name, and Makinon is his family name. So the Rastafari movement came as a result of the idea that Haile Selassie is a descendant of Solomon. In fact, it is believed that he is Yahweh Shai returned. Now, this is so important that we understand this, because that idea came from the Menelik argument, from the Queen of Sheba, Solomon, and Menelik argument. That's the argument that was used to establish Haile Selassie as Rastafari, the return of Christ. So, did this occur? Did the Queen of Sheba actually have a son whose name is Menelik? Did this happen? Let's examine it, because we recorded this encounter in the scriptures. So let us examine it. Let us examine its family context, not so much in the oral tradition. You see, family, in the oral tradition, it says that when our foreparents, and this is the tribes of the 10 tribes, when they came from Assyria, that some of them went through Yemen, through the desert of the Sinai, and they came across a waterway, and they went into the Horn of Africa, and there they met some Jews, and that those Jews somehow are related to Menelik. That's the oral tradition. So did this happen? And the question also is, where did those Jews come from? Where did the Jews that our forefathers met when they came from Assyria? Where did those Jews come from? Because they did meet some Jews in Ethiopia. The question also is, how do we account for that eunuch who came to Jerusalem to worship? Because he was an Israelite. He would never have come to Jerusalem to worship unless he was an Israelite, because he was responding to the law which says 3 times a year shall the men of Israel go to Jerusalem to worship. So that is why he was going there. So he was definitely a Jew. So those questions need to be answered. But let's go back to the scriptures. So we are in 1 Kings You grab that. 1 Kings chapter 11. And I'm just going to jump down to the bottom where Solomon died. Solomon died, and after Solomon was Rehoboam. So in 40, we're going to start from 41. And it says, and the rest of the acts of Solomon, all that he did, and the wisdom, are they not written in the books of the acts of Solomon? So first thing is that if Solomon had a child with Makeda, it would have been written there, because the scripture is clearly saying that they're all written. Yet there is no written record of this anywhere. It says, and the time that Solomon reigned over Jerusalem was 40 years. So Solomon reigned 40 years. And Solomon slept with his father, this is verse 43, and was buried in the city of David, his father, and Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. Why is that important? I'm going to show you why that is important. This is the book of the Kebra Nagast. Now, I am very conversant with this book, the Kebra Nagast. The Lord was preparing me, and I did not know why, but I'm very conversant with this book. And I'm going to advance this argument by saying that the idea that the Queen of Sheba had a son with Solomon was invented. It was invented, and then it was written. It was invented and it was written in this book, the Kebra Nagast. Prior to this, it never existed. This story never existed prior to this book. And this book was written about the 9th to the 10th century. AD. AD, not BC when Solomon and the Queen met. No. This book is, in AD. I say 8th to 9th, maybe to the 10th century, because it took some time to have all the documents be brought together, right? And I'm aware also of the history of this book. But by the 10th century AD, this book was written. It was in the library of the British Library, in the French Library, and also in Germany, this book. And it is written in many different languages. But the idea originated in this book. Now, family, we just read that Solomon died and Rehoboam ruled in his stead. Here in the history, which was the oral history that has now become the written history, and everybody in Kush, in Ethiopia, will tell you that this Kebra Nagast is the glory of the kings of Kush. Now, here in this book, it says, Makeda had a son for Solomon, and she went back to her country, and she had the son there, and that he grew up. He grew up. So we're going to pick up the story at that point. He grew up, and now he is with his mother, and he's speaking to his mother. We are in the Kebra Nagast. I'm on page 114. It might be page 36 in some, page 34 in some other copies. But this is page 114 or 36 in this copy that I'm reading. And I want to start at right here. And it says, and the boy went forth from her presence, and sat down, his mother's presence. They are in Aksum, according to this. A second time, and a third time. And he asked her, and he said, importuned her and to tell him. So he's asking her, please tell me, mom. And one day, however, she told him, saying, his country is afar away, and the road thither is very difficult. Wouldest thou not rather be here? She's saying to him. Now, this is in the oral tradition, which is now written. And the youth, Menelik, which is his birth name, this is Menelik's birth name, said he was handsome, and his whole body and his members and the bearing of his shoulders resembles those of King Solomon his father. This is what they're saying in the tradition. And his eyes and his legs and his whole gait resemble those of Solomon the king. Now watch this, family. And when he was 22 years old, so now he's 22 years old. This is in the tradition. This is the oral history. They're saying that when he was 22 years old, he was skilled in the whole art of war and horsemanship and in hunting and in trapping of wild beasts and everything that a young man wants to learn. He's 22 years old. And he said unto the queen, Makeda, his mother, I will go and look upon the face of my father, and I will come back here by the will of God, the Lord of Israel. So he says to his mother, I'm grown up, I'm 22 years old, I want to know my father. Right? Let's jump over to here. And the queen called Tamarin. Tamarin is her lead chief of the caravans. He is the chief of the caravan of men and the merchants. And she said unto Tamarin, go get ready for the journey, and take this young man with thee, for he has importuned me by night and by day, every day, right? And he wanted to go see the king. So I'm going to jump past this, because what really happened, according to the tradition, is that he went to Jerusalem to see Solomon, right? Many things happened, including they say he stole the Ark of the Covenant, but we're not going to go into that part. What I want us to bear in mind is that he was 22 years old. He was 22 years old. We're going to jump to this next section of the same story. So he went on his journey, and he went to see King Solomon. So here we are. This is page 36 of the copy that I'm using. Is page 116 in any other copies, okay? Now here he is. He's 22 years old, and he is now in Israel. He traveled from Axum to Israel. And the King Solomon answered and said unto them, why? Because King Solomon heard that there's a man that looks just like him, and he wanted to see him. So King Solomon went out to try to find this person. And King Solomon said, where is it then that he wishes to go? He's asking the men that saw this person. And they answered and said unto him, we have not inquired of him, for he is awesome like thyself. But his own people, when we asked them, whence have ye come, and whither do ye go? They said, we have come from the dominion of Endeka. Now this is Kandesi in Ethiopia. In fact, it says it right there. This is Kandesi of Ethiopia. And we are going to the country of Judah to King Solomon. And when King Solomon heard this, his heart was perturbed, and he was glad in his soul. For in those days he had no children. In those days he had no children, except a boy who was 7 years old, and whose name was Rehoboam. Now, family, this is important. Here it says that in the tradition it says Menelik was 22 years old, and Menelik met Jeroboam, who was 7 years old. Now, this is going to tie perfectly into the argument that this never occurred. Because if you read the rest of this, and I'm not going to go into all of it, but in the rest of the account of this, it says that when Menelik went and he met with Solomon, that he also met Rehoboam, and Menelik decided that he's not going to stay because he does not want to be second to Rehoboam. But remember, he's older than Rehoboam, according to the story. Rehoboam is his younger brother. And first of all, why would he be saying that if he is the firstborn? Knowing that the law, and Solomon knows the law, that the firstborn must be given the birthright, whether the firstborn is of your current wife or your concubine. In the law, it states that if a man has two wives and the second wife has his firstborn, then the firstborn son must inherit the double portion and be given the birthright because he is the firstborn. So, um, Menelik should not have this concern. He should not have this concern that he would not be given the kingship because Rehoboam is there. And remember, Rehoboam is only 7 years old, and he already is of age to receive the crown. All right, but he didn't want it. He said he didn't want to stay because, but no, this is the tradition. Now remember, family, this is the tradition. He didn't want to stay because he didn't want to be second to his younger brother, Rehoboam. That's what they say. Now, him being 22 years old and Rehoboam being 7 years old, he's 15 years older. He's 15 years older than Rehoboam. And the scriptures, so he went back, according to the tradition, he went back home. He never stayed. He stole the Ark of the Covenant and took it back to Ethiopia. This is the oral tradition. But um, let us let us read Second Chronicles. Now remember, family, this is the historical context based on scriptures, and what we're comparing it to is the oral traditions of the elders. All right. So Second Chronicles, we're gonna read Second Chronicles because remember now, family, this is our written history of what actually occurred 1200 BC. This that we're reading in the Kebra Nagast is their oral history written in 900 AD, many thousand years apart, right? At least 1,000 years apart. So here's what we wrote, and we go by scriptures first. So Second Chronicles chapter 12. Second Chronicles chapter 12. Now, if Rehoboam is 22, sorry, if Menelik is 22 years old, he's grown, and according to the tradition, he went back, and Makeda made him king in Ethiopia. So Makeda made him king in Ethiopia when he was 22 years old. At that time, Solomon reigned. So, if that were true, then Solomon was king in Israel, and we were all one nation at the time. We were never split yet. Solomon reigned at the same time when Menelik was king in Ethiopia, according to their tradition. So we should have Solomon in Israel reigning and Menelik in Ethiopia reigning one and the same time. Did that happen? No, there's no historical record that that happened. We never wrote it. We never wrote it in the history of Solomon and in the kings of Israel. It's not written anywhere. And it is not written anywhere in Axum or in any place in Abyssinia. It's not written. But anyways, Solomon died and now Rehoboam is now king. So what we have happening is that Rehoboam, who is 15 years the junior of Menelik, is now on the throne in Israel, and Menelik is still king in Ethiopia. Did that occur? No, it never did. And I'm going to prove it to you that it never did. So we're in 2 Chronicles 12 and verse 1. It says, and it came to pass when Rehoboam had established the kingdom. So Solomon is dead, and Rehoboam is now king. And Menelik is supposed to be king also in Ethiopia. And he had strengthened himself and forsook the law of the Lord. Rehoboam forsook the law of the Lord, and all Israel with him. Rehoboam. And it came to pass that in the 5th year of Rehoboam's rule, in the what? 5th year. So now Rehoboam is on the throne 5 years. Menelik is on the throne in Ethiopia 20 years. Rehoboam is 5 years in his rule, and Menelik is supposed to be in Ethiopia 20 years. It says Shishak, the king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem. because he had trespassed against the Lord. So the Lord sets the Egyptian king against Rehoboam because Rehoboam, this is how the Lord does it, right? He sends another nation to judge us if we disobey him, right? Okay, so verse 3. He came up with 1,200 chariots and three score horsemen, and the people were without number that came up with him out of Egypt. Watch this. And the Lubims and the Shukims and the Ethiopians. Stop. Hold on. So you're telling me then that Menelik sends these Ethiopian warriors to war against his brother, 15 years his junior. But we will soon see that the Ethiopian king that sent them was not Menelik. And we're going to also answer the question right now. Where did those Jews come from in Ethiopia? Here's the answer in verse 4. And they took the fenced cities that pertain to Judah. The Ethiopians and the Egyptians and the Lubims and the Sukkims took the fenced cities of Judah. When they came to Jerusalem, they conquered them and they took them as slaves to Ethiopia and to Egypt. This is the reason, family, why Isaiah 11 and 11 says that the Lord shall bring his people back from Cush and from China and from Egypt. Because a lot of people are not very conversant with the whole history of Israel. Family, we have to get conversant with the history of Israel, because then our event chronology will make a lot of sense and it will shed light. This is why the scripture says we are the light. It is going to shed light on a lot of things. And we are doing this because we must share the light. This is not to insult anybody. This is not to embarrass anybody, but that as we shed light upon these things, we'll have greater understanding. And it will also protect us from the wiles of our enemies. The main, I don't know if it's the main one, but I'm going to say one of their master plans is that when we are awake now, and I've expressed this to my brother Kidu many times, right? And I'm very alert. When we are awake at this time, that someone is going to try to give us a king out of Cush. And this is why this thing was devised in the 11th and 12th century and written in the Kebra Nagast and handed down to our elders as though it's truth. This is the plot. This is the plot. This is the plan, family. And we must be at heightened alert and not let this happen to us. But it is their plan. But as you can see, family, that while Rehoboam was reigning and Menelik is supposed to be king in Ethiopia, that it has to be him that joined himself with the Egyptians and with the Ludims, who is Lud, Algeria, and the Sukkims and the Ethiopians. They sent a huge army to destroy Rehoboam. So Shema the prophet came to Rehoboam and he talked to him and he said, you know, that they are coming up here to kill you. And so what Rehoboam did was that Rehoboam went to the Lord and Rehoboam repented, right? Rehoboam repented. Now remember that these people had already taken the fenced cities of Judah and dragged them off into and made them scatter, make them slaves, also in Ethiopia. So that number one, this is where those Jews came from that was in Ethiopia long before the split, long before the Assyrian captivity, and long before the return from Assyrian captivity into Assyria. This is where those Jews come from. They're not the descendants of Menelik. But anyways, let's continue. So Shishak and the Egyptians, they come up against Jerusalem and they took away the treasures. So I'm telling you that they stormed us. They took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and of the king, and they took all and carried them away. So they carried us slaves. Instead of which Rehoboam made, Solomon had made some shields with gold. They took them away. So now Rehoboam makes shields of copper, of brass. But anyways, I'm going to jump down. I'm going to pass all that because I want to take us to verse 13. Verse 13. Verse 13, family. So Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned, for Rehoboam was 40 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem. Stop. So Rehoboam is reigning for 17 years, and in his eighth year, this took place. No, he strengthened himself and he repented to the Lord, right? And it said that you can read the rest of that. Verse 14 says, and he did evil because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. This is Rehoboam. Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Sheba the prophet and Iddo the seer concerning the genealogies? And there were wars between Jeroboam and Rehoboam continually. We spoke about that last time. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And Abijah, his son, reigned in his stead. So now we are in Abijah. We're in Abijah. Menelik is supposed to still be king in Cush. By the way, Brother Judah, why do you keep saying that Menelik should still be king and is still king in Cush? I'm going to show you. So this, no, not this one, not that one. Let me show you. This. Pay attention, family. This is the kingship, the monarchy of Ethiopia from Menelik. I could go back before Menelik, but it's not necessary. Let's just start with Menelik. This is the compilation of the kings of Ethiopia by Haile Selassie. It is Haile Selassie who made this list. And there are about 3 different lists that were done because Haile Selassie had commissioned, I think, 3 other scholars to compile this list. But this is the king's list. It's called Haile Selassie's list, the king's list. Now, of course, you know that this list is done. Let me show you, family. Let me show you so you can see it to see it. This list is done, and it is in the British Museum right here. Let me see if I can make it big, because you have to see these things to see them, family. And God was preparing me for this day. It said there are 2 manuscripts held in the British Museum. You see that? And they were done in 1928. And there was one that was done earlier, I think, in here. Here's another one. The A list was done in 1853. I'm talking about in our time. Last year, you know, historically speaking, last year. This is not something that existed during the time when Makeda came to see Solomon. This was done last year. Why? Because remember, I told you that their plan is, and it is written. I'm going to show you how, not today, because I'm going to visit this subject again, but I'm going to show you, family, how that this is something that they wrote and agreed that this is what they will do when we wake up. So in preparation for them doing this when we wake up, family, they're not sleeping. Our enemies are not sleeping. They are every day, even now, planning what they're going to do to us when we become one. So they created this list. Haile Selassie created this list. It's called the King's List. It's the A list and the B list. 2 lists. This list that I'm using here is the 1928 list. And it starts from Menelik. This is Selassie says, let's put Menelik at the head. Haile Selassie told the man, let's put Menelik first. Why? Because they're inventing this lie, okay? So in this list, it says, now I want you to notice the captions. Let me see if I can move this so it doesn't block my screen. You notice the caption, it said the number of king, the common name, the list position, the name on the list, the time when they reign, the length of time that they reign. Okay, all right. Now, Menelik has different names in different languages. The Gizi language, I believe, and some other languages, including Arabic, right? So they have all these different names. Now, first of all, you have to ask yourself the question, why would he have Arabic name during the time of Solomon? Because at that time, we spoke Hebrew. But anyways, so he's also called this name, which I can't say. I mean, no, this is his position. This is the position in their language. It's number 1, the first king since Makeda. That's what this is. So his position is the first king, and these are his list names. So he's named this in one language, which I cannot say. He's also here, if this in the second line is him still, he's called Menelik or David the first. Now remember, family, how I showed you in the Kebra Nagast that according to their tradition, that Solomon crowned him King David the first. Remember? All right. So in their tradition, he's also called David. In the third line, he is the same person that is called Menelik or IBN. I can't say that word. Hakim. It's him, the same person. If you notice his position here on this side, that it is still number one. He's still number one. He's also number one here, the first king. He's also called Menelik. And when you go down to the next line, he has this other designation. He's still number one, and he's also called Menelik Old David, right? Same thing. And you see that it goes down here to the other line where Dillman wrote him in, and this is the A list, the first list, and he is in the first position, and he's also called IBN, I can't say it, Al-Hakim, right? It goes down also to the next line, and you see here in the manuscript that it is still he is in first position king, and he is called Ebna El Hakim. And I cannot speak these languages, so forgive me, family, but you can see it is the same king, Menelik. And then you go to the next monarch that follows him, and you can see over here that he is now number two. And this is his name. And this number two has many names also all the way down. And then you have the next king, right? So this is how they did it. This is how Haile Selassie instructed these people to make this list. Now, remember, I was trying to explain why do I say he was still reigning for so long, all right? So here you can see that in the first line, it says he reigned for 29 years. In the next line, from this compilation, they say he reigned 4 years. In the next line, they say he reigned 29 years. And in the next line, they say he reigned 25 years. And in the next line, they say he reigned 24 years. So somewhere between 24 years and 29 years is when they claim that Menelik was reigning. So he reigned at least 20 years alongside Solomon, because he came to the throne when Solomon was in his 20th year of reign. So he's reigning 20 years with Solomon and 9 more years after Solomon. So he also reigned in the 5th year of Rehoboam when they sent the armies to attack Judah. Remember, we just read that, right? So he should have been that king that sent the armies because he's still reigning. And now Rehoboam is dead, because this is where we're headed, right? This man still have 9 more years on his reign. Rehoboam is now dead because Rehoboam only reigned 17 years. We just read that, right? Rehoboam reigned 17 years. Rehoboam is now dead, and Rehoboam's son took over. Who is Rehoboam's son? Abijah. So Abijah took over, and Abijah is now reigning. Abijah did some things, and then Abijah died. I'm going to drop past that in the interest of time. I know my brother has to go. But
just have 10 minutes left. I just want to say so because I see Dinano is texting me and the live should start with 15 minutes. Yeah,
I know.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's just wrap this up real quick, right? I want to wrap this up real quick. So let us go to 2 Chronicles chapter 14 in the interest of time. 2 Chronicles chapter 14, right? And we start at verse 1. So Abijah slept with his father and was buried into the city of David. And Asa, beautiful Asa, his son reigned in his stead. So you see how our monarchy goes from one king to his son, to his son, to his son, to his son, because that's what a dynasty is, right? This is the dynasty of Judah. And it says that, and there was quiet in his land for 10 years. And Asa did good in the sight of the Lord. Asa is doing great in the sight of the Lord, right? And let's jump down to verse 8. No, who is king in Ethiopia? Menelik. Verse 8 says, and Asa had an army of men that bear targets and spears out of Judah, 3,000 300,000, and out of Benji. So you see, Judah and Benji together, and out of Benjamin that bear shield and drew swords, 104,000 men. I know that brother Zokiah was part of them. It says, and they were very valiant men. And watch this. And there came out against them Zerah, the Ethiopian, which had host of a thousand, a thousand, a thousand and 300 chariots, and they came unto Marisha. And then Asa went out against them, and they set the battle in array, and so on and so forth. So what happens here is that the Ethiopians sent their armies up against Judah again, this time under Asa. Now, of course, you know that the Lord discomfited them and slew them, right? It says, so that the Lord smote the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and they fled into Ethiopia. And we chased after them, and we went into Ethiopia, and we spoiled them. We took everything. It says, and they smote all the cities round about Gerar, for the fear of the Lord was upon them, and they spoiled the cities, and for there was exceedingly much spoil, right? So we took everything, and we smote them and all their tents, and then we went back to Jerusalem. So we in my colloquial language, we say we dust them out, right? We dust them out. But the point I want to make here is, according to them, according to Selassie, Haile Selassie, Menelik is supposed to have been king. Menelik is supposed to be king. But here it says it was not Menelik. It was not Menelik. It was Zara, the king of Ethiopia. Now, do you know that this Zara is found in the king's list? But he is not the king at the time, because according to their tradition, it is supposed to have been Menelik. He's still ruling 29 years, right? Now, one last thing, and I know the brother have to go. One last thing. So let's say that Menelik had died, and then his successor would have been the ruler. His successor, according to the king's list, is still not Zerah. Now remember, here it says number 2 king, and I can't say this word, Handodea. Maybe my brother can help me with those pronunciations. But he's supposed to be the next king after, right? And he is supposed to be, if it's a dynasty from Menelik, if it's a dynasty, he's supposed to be Menelik's son. If it's a dynasty, if it is a Solomonic dynasty, this man is supposed to be Menelik's son. And in the interest of time, I'm going to kill that argument right now, right? So here we have, this is my trusted AI companion, because the Lord is leading me, right? So I asked the question, how did this man, I can't say his name, related to Bena Leakim? I remember Bena Leakim is Menelik. Family, sometimes when you're doing these researches, you see you have to go back to the original name. This is the original name. If you search, did Menelik related to this man, you will either get no answer or you will get a confusing answer. But if you use this name, the AI know what you're looking for. It says, based on available sources, there is no document. Listen, there is no documented relationship between this man and Menelik. You see that? Because he's not his son. Then it talks about this in the historical record or the Kebra Nagast, because that's where this idea comes from, family. It don't exist anywhere, and it never existed in any oral tradition of the people of Kush ever before the Kebra Nagast. It never existed. So this here that we're seeing, that we're looking at, this king's list, was orchestrated by Haile Selassie. It's called the King's List because the king that it is referring to is Haile Selassie. Now we can go into that history and I can prove it to you, but in the interest of time, this is a summary. So so this second king is not related to Menelik. You know why? Because Menelik never existed. And then when you do the genealogy of these kings from this man, right? By the way, and that's the same person. So you see that they have the same name until you get, this is number third king. So now if you do the genealogy now, you will see the relationship between this king and this one. Where am I? And this one. But this king, number two king, has no relationship to Menelik. You know why? Because Menelik never existed. So family, in closing, as the brother has to go and I also have to break it. And I will come back and talk a little bit more about this because we have to understand it to understand it. And I also implore you, family, to go to our channel and watch the series of The Art of War because this would shed light upon it. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this, and I will address this again, family, is that we are at a crossroads in the history of the tribes, and we cannot afford to be derailed. Their plan is written that when we are awakened, that they're going to orchestrate a king out of Cush. And it is the reason why they took advantage of the meeting between Makeda and King Solomon to invent this king, because they know Ezekiel 37. They know Hosea 1 and 10. They know Jeremiah 30, that we're going to see King David, and their intention is to give him to us. So let us be careful of that. So I did say that in terms of source documents, I do not recommend the Ethiopian Bible. That's another thing I'm going to talk about in the future. I do recommend if you can get yourself one of these, the Sefer, because it has all the books. It has the Apocrypha, it has the 1611, and it also has Enoch, Joshua, and Jubilees. If you can get yourself this is your to-go source document. You can still read anything you want to widen your horizon. But be careful of what you read, be careful of what you eat, because not every food is not tainted, right? So I think I'm going to break it here. I know the brother has another engagement, and we look forward, brother, also to meet you with Denano in your live interview. Thank you, everybody. I hope that this has been edifying, that you gained something from this. I'm going to post this also on the website, and I'm going to post the document also on the website so you can browse it, and also on our YouTube. Thank you, everybody. This has been the oral tradition. And with that, I just want to say all honor, all glory, all praises to the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahweh, and the Son, whose name is Yahweh Shai. And until we meet again, family, is Shalom, Shalom, and Shalom, everybody. No, yeah, no, I want you to
Shalom, Shalom. Good
lesson,
Brother Judah. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much. If Brother Kido wants to give a last word before he goes, and we look forward to seeing you, brother, with Denano.
Okay, thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Thank you for the lesson. I enjoyed it because actually you're speaking about Judah, because Solomon, on our part, our kings, which we even in the times of repentance, it was Jeroboam. So those things were issues for Judah. I want everybody to understand, so as nobody can take it into consideration that it is about us because they sin Kush. No, the Israelites here, we are beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. We are beyond Ethiopia. And thank you for identifying the house of Judah, because when we were repenting for the house of Jeroboam, you are doing the part of Rehoboam, and thank you for edifying about your part. And it's really a big problem in the people in Caribbeans and the Rastafaris who brought that Menelik issue. But us in Sub-Sahara, we don't have that issue. But we thank you. I learned a lot for that lesson. I didn't want you to end because of me. I just came here to learn. I just have a live session with Dinano right now. 10 minutes to 10. It's now 10 minutes from this time here. So that's why I just wish you all guys a good lesson. I enjoyed the lesson, and we'll be joining you every Sabbath. even today I had a very tight time. I told even my brother I wouldn't come, but I saw the time I have 1.5 hour. I can just join and learn. So please don't see like I am making this go fast because of me. No. Even the brother, I told him that I won't join today, but I saw even if I have 1 hour, I better come and listen. So I say this because I didn't like how it was rushed because of me. Brother, you can carry on. I really enjoyed the lesson. Thank you, everyone. Love you all. Thank you.
That's so gracious. Thank you so much, brother. But I have to end anyways because because of the time change, and I have other engagement also. So Yahweh bless you, brother. Much grace and love to you and to the tribes in Africa as we continue to unite in the name of Yahweh Shai. Shalom.
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 Shalom.